I probably should have given up on this YouTube thing a long time ago, but something keeps me coming back, and it's definitely not the money. I am so far away from ever having a business that it puts me in a really creative space. Like, there's a lot of freedom for what I can do and say because I've got nothing for you except some experience with creative resistance. So I guess this one's for the artists. We'll call this fighting the devil of creative resistance. How does one do that? I think when you're in a cave and you have no light, of course, you have to be your own light. You have to light your own way. And this has been the recurring theme of every kind of breakthrough in my life, none of which can be recorded or measured with money or status or anything like that. These are, I wouldn't even call these spiritual breakthroughs. These are, very idiosyncratic personal things that can only be understood in retrospect. One thing that I find so valuable about AI as a very kind of introverted person, despite having a lot of social jobs, being the type of person who can be social on command, kind of like an actor does. But for some reason, I've never taken that skill to YouTube, this kind of actor's presentation. And it's because I really like this idea of authentic stream of consciousness. Because when I look for value on the internet, that's the only content I consume is someone else's stream of consciousness. I cannot really listen to anything else. So I figure I might give that back, that there's definitely somebody who's going through creative resistance and will need to see somebody document that process of yet another phase in my life where there's extraordinary shifts of habits. And man, I've pulled a lot of late nights, a lot of all-nighters. I mean, I haven't pulled double all-nighters in like 15 years. I'm somebody who is a yoga instructor and a fitness coach and Mr. Healthy, Mr. Sober just 6 months ago. No, I'm not into drugs or anything. It's just there's a kind of intoxication involved with staying up late and writing into the next morning. It's kind of a guilty pleasure to be able to sit down and write my fantasy fiction and create my stable diffusion characters and the explosion of creativity that's coming with AI video. This is a really deep subject that I call the alchemical imagination. And I don't know if there's any other way to apprehend it except for intuitively. And that's one thing that I think is not talked about enough, is that AI can help you build your intuition. Because you spend enough time in that kind of echo chamber, you're testing the limitations of what Claude or ChatGPT can do for you in terms of creative writing. And sooner or later, you have to become your own editor. You have to become your own captain of your own aesthetic. And that's probably the one thing that I would at least like to give. Like, that's something I'd like to build, would be, I don't know, a guide for people completely perplexed by their own intuition. I've called it many names: the heroic imagination, the alchemical imagination. I've messed with memory techniques. There's so many little elements that you can put into developing your intuition. But the beauty of YouTube, the beauty of giving value, really comes down to, what value can you give intuitively? Sort of like spiritual gun to your head. No edgy suicide stuff here. I'm just saying, when you put some pressure on yourself, pressure in the way that you would relieve pressure in the way that a massage therapist puts pressure, or a chiropractor puts pressure, or a yoga instructor does an assisted stretch or something like that. You get spotted by a strength coach. That's constructive pressure. And so you have to be able to creatively spot your own intuition. And one of the best ways to develop that is what I'm doing right now. Simply allowing myself to go off the cuff here and talk about my own creative resistance. And I have strong goals and strong plans, and I know what it's like to hit certain goals. I've never hit my financial goals. That's not quite in my dharma yet. But I've hit very strange, sort of magical goals in my life. And like any good mantra, you kind of have to keep those things a secret. So I can only allude to some of the things that I've been able to pull off in my personal life. But those things are hard to capture. How do you capture that kind of value? It's not the type of thing you turn into a course or a coaching program. So I don't have that kind of business in mind, you know? I mean, heck, if you want to hire somebody who's really good with advanced comfy UI, stable diffusion workflows, whatever, I can help you with that. But the big takeaway from this video is for that struggling artist that you're already in an echo chamber, man. You may as well post something. You may as well put something out there. You may as well pressure yourself to relieve pressure. This isn't a phase in my life where I'm going to make anything, at least nothing that's going to be extraordinarily valuable in the monetary sense. This is a phase of exploration, complete exploration, just being out naked in the wilderness of my own intuition in the face of a world that's not really listening. Not that they should or shouldn't. It's just, how can they? I've made like 2 videos, I've made like 4 or 5 attempts, and the thing is, when you delete your internet profiles, you lose a track record. So, if you're young and you have some social media stuff, you should keep it. Don't delete it just because it's not good enough or something. I was so flippant about erasing my past over and over and over and over just to, because if I get rid of the old, then I make way for the new, right? But the problem is, you won't really be able to understand what's new about your life if you don't have some kind of retroactive, recursive understanding. And so if I had documented more closely the last time that I was really into design and art and creativity and all this stuff, which I did a little bit with my cryptic journals and whatnot, if I had more detailed notes, I'd be able to understand where I'm at more deeply. But I kind of have to mine my memory in real time. I can't just sit down and write these scripts out. I have to feel my way in the moment. It's a dance with a potential viewer, but mostly with myself. So let's consider this a rehearsal of talking about the alchemical imagination and how you can face down that devil. And I think the first real task is this relief of pressure and spotting the soul, spotting your creative intuition. That really means being there for yourself. And the only way you can prove that you can do that to yourself is to do things that have no value, no consequence, no return. So you can at least start by practicing giving to yourself. And I think that's what the value of YouTube has always been. That when we see someone giving to their past self, we can get serious value from that. So to the past self of me, any younger person who's kind of like, oh, should I take a risk on this creative thing? Well, you've probably already decided that you want to. And you probably already know deep down that there's going to be like financial struggles and whatnot. And I will say this, though. You'll never have enough tools. You'll never have enough money to do the creative things that you think you need to do, but that's defeating the purpose of creativity. How else can you practice your intuition, building an audience, public speaking, and freeing your mind all at the same time if you don't actually do that single activity? And that is the central value of content creation. Being able to pull off what I'm doing right now, however well I'm doing it, took many years of confidence building, but not in the way you think, not in the way of opening your heart to somebody or showing up to a brand like a gym and starting your first workout of 1,000 workouts. And believe me, you should start counting in hundreds and thousands of attempts. The sooner you count like that, the sooner you can make big things small. And that's kind of, you see, that's kind of what the devil of creative resistance doesn't want you to do. It wants you to think that every single little attempt is so important. It just isn't, you know? And the kind of baggage that I'm holding is somebody who's made 1,000 YouTube videos that never got posted. I could lament it. I could be kind of upset at it, but I have to relieve that pressure. I have to get that out, you know? I made a bunch of fitness content before, and I am absolutely burned out on that. I'm more burned out on the thought of doing calisthenics workouts and explaining all that stuff than I am right now, having very little sleep, being kind of broken financially and all sorts of things. You know, I'm not here for somebody to look up to me, but I am here to say that you don't need to look up to anybody. You just practice looking up to yourself. You practice observing other people. Maybe you observe me and you're like, do I really want to be like that guy? Maybe you do a little bit. Maybe you see some of yourself in me. But let's take this creative resistance and make it work for you in the same way that you make weightlifting work for you. And one of the beautiful things about physical fitness is that it truly is just about consistency. And it's so much less about intensity. And that's not really the advice that you're going to get from the top creators on how to get fit. But really, 1,000 mediocre workouts, 1,000 mediocre videos, 1,000 mediocre anything is going to result in some progress of some sort. So why don't you kind of trick that devil and create something right when you're about to give up? Because that's what I'm doing right now. This is somebody who has every reason to just stop, pack it in, throw it all away. Stop with the art, stop with the pretending, stop with the fake videos and the no business and the no plan. I have every reason not to do this, but maybe that's actually the best reason to do it.